Hi, welcome to the Online Jewelry Academy. I'm John Ahr and I'm your instructor. And today I'm going to be working with copper wire and beads. Now you can edit out the beads if you want to. You don't have to include them in this project. But we're going to be working with a copper wire that's a 14 gauge. But for this project you can work with 18 to 14 gauge, depending on how thick and bulky you want the piece to be. Okay, so you're wondering, what are we going to make? Well, you probably already know from the title of this video, we're going to make a fibula. No, that's not a bone in your leg. It is an ancient style of pin that's made from a single piece of wire. And here you can see I used a couple of gold filled beads to give it a little extra color and dimension. So anyway, let's get started and I'll show you how to make this great project. Before you do anything, think about the safety considerations. And here we probably want to put on our safety glasses just in case. Don't want anything flying in your eyes. And you want to protect your body and your clothing. So put on a smock or an apron. Okay, you look good too. Alright, so we're going to start with some copper wire. Like I said, this is a 14 gauge piece of copper wire. And I probably need about 1.5 to 2 feet of this wire. So I'll just stretch it out and I'm going to pinch where I need to cut it. I'll bring that over here and I'm going to use a pair of diagonal cutters. There we go. So now we have a nice length of copper wire to work with. Now, any pin needs a pin stem with a point to go through the fabric, otherwise it's not wearable. So we're going to start by putting a point on the end of the wire. The way that you do that is you work with your bench pin and you're going to take just any file will do and you will create a small groove in the end of your bench pin. Then what you do is you just put the end of the wire into that groove and you file on top of the bench pin as you rotate the wire. It's a little tricky, but with a little bit of practice you'll get really good at it. And you just want to keep that wire moving. Now, it doesn't matter if you move it towards you or away from you, but what you want to do is you want to rotate it as you file and kind of push it up the groove to create the taper that you need. So let's give this a little bit more. It's tricky to turn the wire, but anyway. Alright, so we've got a nice little bit of a point. Be careful not to poke your eye out. And if you want to smooth that point out a little bit, you can use a sanding stick. Now if you don't have one of these, you can make one really easily out of double-sided carpet tape or double-stick tape, sandpaper, and a paint stir stick. And you can get that for free. If you're cute and you flirt with the paint guy at Home Depot, I'm sure he'll give one to you. So just run this over the end of your point, and this should take out all of those little snaggy things that would screw up your silk blouse, let's say. Okay, so we have a nice point on the end of our project. Now, we need to determine how long the project's going to be and what shape it's going to take. So I'm going to draw a pattern. So all of these projects are going to have a pointed pin stem. And I'm going to make the pin stem to represent the length of the total project. Well, that pin stem is going to need to have a little bit of spring to it. So I'm going to create a little spiral at the top of the pin stem. And then I want it to be dynamic and interesting. So I'm going to let it go up and down and maybe come around this way and maybe make a couple of loops. And then I want it to create a hook that grabs the wire. So we'll double down and create that hook. And then I'll end with another spiral flourish. And if we wanted to, we could stick a bead or two in there anywhere we want. Okay? So let's get started with it. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a pair of pliers and I'm going to put out a bench block and I'm going to get my Cross-Peen Hammer out. Now, the Cross-Peen Hammer has a flattened end that will stretch the metal in just two directions, and it has a flat end that if you use that, it's like stepping on a cockroach. Everything goes out in all directions simultaneously. All of these surfaces are bright and shiny, and so is the surface of the bench block. So this will help to polish the piece as you make it. Now, the pliers are like fingers, and you can go over your fingers with the wire to make a perfect curve if you want to. So these are the only tools that we're going to need. All right, so let's pick up our wire. Let me find which end has the point on it. It's this one. And we're going to say, okay, it's going to be about that long. And what I want to do is just give the wire a nice bend. So I'm just creating a big capital letter L. That's it. Then what we're going to do is just grab the wire, hold it tight, and then all we do is just swing the big piece of wire around. Look at that. It makes a beautiful spiral. The trick to making a nice spiral is you kind of got to watch what you're doing and make sure that the wire has a nice spacing to it. So as you can see, it kind of matches the drawing that I'm making right there. Now, I want this locked in. I don't want it moving around. So what I need to do is I need to set it on the end of the bench block and forge it a little bit. Watch your fingers, don't crush anything. And there you go. You can see how that creates like a nice little bit of texture. It widens the wire out and it locks it in place. I can't pull that out anymore. So it's there for good. Okay, so let's bend the pin over and put it on top of the drawing. So now you can see where here's my pin stem wire, here's this curve, and now I want it to come up. So I'm going to come up. I'm going to be playful with this. It may not match my drawing exactly, but it'll be close. So I want to come up and I want to maybe give it a little bit of a curve. I'm just doing this with my fingers and I want it to come back. Okay, so that looks horrible. So let me adjust it with my fingers. Use your best judgment, just play with it. And when you find a nice curvature that you like, lock it in. So I'm going to lock this in. Now I'm going to hit it. And if I want to stretch it, I use this end of the hammer. So this end of the hammer is going to pull the wire out. Can you see that? Gave us a lot of texture, and it really changed the dimension of the wire too. Okay, so at this point, maybe I want to add a bead. So let me grab a bead. I'll grab this big gold one. Put it on the end of your wire. Now remember, when you buy beads, take a piece of wire with you to make sure that the beads are going to fit onto your wire. Okay, so there's big gold bead, right where I anticipated it, coming off of that loop, and now I need to create another loop. So I'm just going to use my fingers, and I'm going to bend that loop, and I'm going to lock that in. So this is all a process of bending and locking, and double checking against your drawing periodically to make sure that you're on target with things. All right, so let me continue making these, and let me just answer a question that I can already anticipate receiving in an email. What is gauge? Gauge is the thickness of the wire. And you have a lot of options in terms of wire gauges. So you just need to pick one that's going to suit your needs and give you the look that you want. Okay, I'm going to lock this one in. And checking my drawing again. I'm pretty close to the original drawing. So let me just make some minor adjustments. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cause the wire to double back on itself to create a hook to catch the pin. That's really easy to do. All I have to do is give it a little bit of length, and look, I'm just using my fingers, and just bend the wire back on itself. If you want to tighten it up, you could carefully use your pliers to make it a little bit tighter, like that. or I could even put it on edge on on this bench block and do that, and that closes that up a little bit too. Okay, so this particular pin, if I want to make it catch, I'm just going to give this a nice bend over the top. I'm going to straighten that out a little bit while I can. So you can see how that comes over and catches the pin right there. And then I'm going to have to go back and end with a little flourish. And you can see from the original design it's just a spiral. Well, the reason for that is so that when you go to hug somebody, this sharp point doesn't stab them. So let me come back over. Look, just fingers. Now if you want to, you can bring pliers into play, and it might actually complicate things to use your pliers, but for some people they're more comfortable using tools to make these twists and turns. And I'm going to make this spiral look a little bit crazy. But you can see I basically have the completed fibula right there. I just need to lock this part in. So I'm going to make a little noise and lock it down. You may have to turn the piece over, or you might have to move things to get where you need to go. That's okay, because it'll go right back. Okay. So I've now got a pin, and let me show you from the back. Here's my pin stem, here's my catch, and this is the front of the pin. And notice that all of this is on the opposite side from the pin stem. If you have it wrapping around, it won't be wearable. Okay, now right now that pin stem, sure, it fits underneath that catch. If you want it to fit really nicely, cheat a little bit. Bend your pin stem up with your fingers so it goes above the pin, and then that will create a tension so that when you put it there, it locks right in. So if I turn it back, there we go. Okay. If you want to straighten out the pin stem or work hard in it to make it a little bit stiffer, all you've got to do is just open your pin up a little bit, lay the pin stem onto your bench block, and just lightly hit it with your hammer. That will work harden it, and if you turn it around, it should straighten it out too. And now it's nice and stiff. Now this is a rather thick gauge wire, so you probably don't want to put this through a silk blouse, but you might want to put it through a scarf or maybe a jean jacket. And I'm just going to stick it through my apron so you can see what it looks like on. So, my pin's not very sharp. That's okay. I'll go back and sharpen it later. Catch it. There it is. Looks pretty good, huh? I'm sure your mom would like it, or somebody special who loves you. Thanks for watching the Online Jewelry Academy. Check out our other videos and check out our products online as well. See you again.